All right. Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. I'm Provost Ann Cudd, and I'm so pleased to be here to welcome you to today's Green Speakeasy session, where three of our newest deans, who each share a clear interest and focus on the principles of sustainability, will explore what it means to be forging sustainability the Pitt way. And appropriately enough for Women's History Month, we have three women deans being welcomed by a woman provost as well. So I'm looking forward to so much to today's panel with Amy Wildermuth, who is the Dean of the Law School, Carissa Slotterback, Dean of the Graduate School of Public and International Affairs, and Maureen Lichtveld, the newest Dean, Dean of the Graduate School of Public Health. In late September 2019, I participated with other higher education representatives in a Spotlight on Pittsburgh forum during the 74th United Nations General Assembly in New York City. We highlighted our region's many accomplishments when it comes to advancing the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. The UN's 17 Sustainable Development Goals, as I'm sure all of you know, encompass a broad range of targets spanning not just issues of climate action, affordable and clean energy, and responsible consumption and production, but also those like reduced inequalities, good health and well-being, and quality education. And I was proud to represent the university on that panel to share examples of how Pitt is finding innovative and collaborative ways to tackle these global challenges and issues. The United Nations framework parallels Pitt's vision of sustainability, which balances equity, environment, and economics in ways meant to benefit current and future generations. Of course, the Pitt Sustainability Plan was launched in 2018. From business operations, master planning, and social engagement to groundbreaking research and student activism, there's so much happening with sustainability efforts on our campus. We're making great strides, but our work clearly must continue. It is only through cross-campus collaborations that our goals of building a better future for those on our campus, in our city and beyond, will be achieved. And I believe today's panelists will be instrumental in achieving these goals. The work they're doing is integral to the current and future collaborative work we need to perform to achieve our sustainability goals. And now it's my pleasure to turn this over to Dean Amy Wildermuth, your host and moderator for this discussion.
Thank you so much, Provost Cudd. We really appreciate it. And we are so excited to see so many of you here. I don't know if you're looking at the participant number down there, but I see we are well over 100 at this point. So thank you all for taking time on your Tuesday to join us for this conversation. And we really do intend for this to be a conversation. We want to engage with all of you, and we want to talk in that way that we try to do when we're in person in the University Club and have an exchange of ideas here. So with that, I'm going to just sort of outline how we'll conduct things, and then I'm going to turn it over to our featured panelists, we will call them. All right, so the first thing we'll do is we'll introduce everybody, and then we're going to do some set questions that we agreed on, about 3 or 4 questions to start things off. And then we want your questions. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat or let Gina know, or, raise your hand. That's how we'll make sure that we're going to get to everybody and answer your questions as we go. So those are the starting rules. Anything else that I've missed, Gina, that you want to throw in here?
No, that sounds awesome. I'm excited to get started.
All right, so here we go. So I'm going to turn it over first to Dean Slotterback to have her introduce herself and tell you a little bit about her interests in sustainability. So go ahead.
Great. All right. Thank you, Amy. And thanks. I'm really excited to be part of this fantastic Dean team. And thanks, Provost Cudd, for the kind introduction and setup for the conversation today. So I'm new to Pitt. I started here in October of 2020, and so have been working virtually throughout the time that I've been here, but it's just been a wonderful landing spot. And I've really enjoyed getting to know my colleagues in the Graduate School of Public and International Affairs and getting to know all of the great folks at Pitt. I'm an urban planner by training and have done a lot of research focused on sustainability issues throughout my career, looking at sustainability in agricultural regions in Minnesota and how we can transition to more multifunctional landscapes that produce economic value and positive environmental impacts, looking at local sustainability implementation, regional sustainability planning, sustainable transportation, and those sorts of issues. So hoping to bring that expertise and also that passion that I've had for sustainability to work that I get to do as a member of this community of both Pittsburgh and Pitt. And also, looking for ways to be able to continue to support the institution in moving toward a greater focus on sustainability.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. All right, now we're going to kick it over to our newest dean, Dean Lichtveld. Go ahead.
Well, good afternoon. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Provost Cudd. When I was interviewed by the provost, she took me to her office window and said, well, that's this, and that's that, and that's that. And I thought, well, maybe I will be here to enjoy those places. And here I am. So thank you for doing that. Thank you, Amy, for putting this panel together. My background comes from working as a 23-year-old physician in the Amazon rainforest in the Caribbean, in Suriname, and noticing that three things were coming together: environmental issues, health disparities, and threats that have specifically to do with inequities and climate. So it's that formed my growing up, so to speak, from just being a physician, not that a clinician is not a good thing to be, but just being a physician to a public health scientist. I took that passion to the United States, and I can't tell you how excited I am to join the Pitt family because of the assets that are under our nose. And one of those assets are all that we bring together to address the sustainability issues. So physician by background, public health scientist, and particularly environmental health. And my focus in research is health disparities and particularly community engaged research. So I'm excited about this panel. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to open it up with our first question, and I'll turn it over to Carissa. You'll take this one first, okay? So the first question is, how can we as a university model what we are hoping for in terms of sustainability in our community?
Great. All right, thanks. I think we'll have a lot of commonalities based on our backgrounds and how we answer some of these questions. So happy to share a few first thoughts on this question. So I think for me, there are a few pieces of this. And one, importantly, is we need to make sure that we have the right people and the right expertise to be able to actually bring to the table in solving some of the most complex social, societal, community challenges that are out there right now. And I think what sustainability has offered me as I've navigated my career and a variety of issues and community engagement opportunities and research and teaching is sustainability gives this really powerful framework to be able to see the multiple facets and drivers and intersections among the challenges that we engage with. I think it gives us at the same time a really powerful framework to develop systemic solutions that are actually attentive to the complexity. It makes that complexity clear, it makes that complexity manageable, and it helps reveal the pathways to actually intervene in those systems to be able to make a substantial shift and a substantial impact. I think we need depth of expertise related to environmental, economic, and equity facets of sustainability. And we need to be deepening our capacity to do work in ways that actually make those connections. So I think we'll talk a lot today about cross-disciplinarity One of the things that's on my mind in this regard within the School of Public and International Affairs is the opportunity to engage with sustainability across our research, across our curriculum, and our engagement activities. And a key piece of that is our faculty. And we're thinking right now about the kinds of faculty expertise that we need in our GSPIA community in the coming years so that we can best serve our students, what they're looking for, what they're demanding, what they're needing to do the kinds of impactful public service work that they want to do. Who do we need to be able to produce the needed research? And importantly, who should we be as a school in order to be a strong partner with colleagues across the University of Pittsburgh and in the communities that we work with? So just a couple of them of sort of hiring priorities that are bubbling up for us. One of those is, of course, climate change. You know, so many institutions are looking about their own positioning and depth to be able to contribute on this massive issue that is facing our globe. And we're really thinking about this from a public and international affairs perspective. So we're seeing climate change and environmental impacts that are disrupting economies and livelihoods, leading to things like ecological refugees, political conflict, food insecurity. And again, you see in those factors that sustainability perspective represented. It's multiple intersecting challenges. And if we're taking approaches to address climate change, we need to be able to bring a sustainability perspective to that. Another piece we're really thinking about is economic development and the ways that we can be better positioned to contribute closer to home as we see communities in the Pittsburgh region, Southwest Pennsylvania, Appalachia, who are challenged by shifts in resource-based economies that have historically relied on coal and oil and gas, seeing environmental impacts from that, seeing economic and fiscal challenges in these communities to provide services, and at the same time addressing poverty and employment and quality of life sorts of issues. I think also once we get to that point, when we have the right people at the table, whether from our school or even better, coming together across this university, we also need to ensure that we're truly a partner on efforts to advance sustainability-focused solutions. And that comes down to how we work and how we engage on an ongoing basis with communities, making sure that we are reliable, that we're trusted, and that we're actually a sustainable partner for communities over the long haul to be able to do this work. We're here, we're connected. This work will be going on for a long period of time, and we're at that table. We're thinking as well, not just about faculty and staff, but how we're training students to do this work. They'll go out as practitioners, they may transition to academic roles in the future, and we want to be orienting them to this way of working and thinking. And then last, and I think we'll talk about this a bit more later, is as a huge institution, we have a tremendous opportunity for impact in terms of our facilities and operations. There's amazing work going on with Pitt sustainability, climate action plan, carbon neutrality goals, and I hope this filters down on a day-to-day basis in the ways we think about using water and energy, promoting biking and walking and transit on campus and in commuting, how we invest our resources in local businesses, employ members of the community. And especially as I get to campus for the first time, I'm really excited to figure out how I can contribute to that, how our school can be active, and just really excited to be a partner. Those are a few first thoughts.
All right, thank you. And Aurora, I'm sure you were listening on that last bit there. So, all right, Maureen, anything to add? Anything you want to add on this point?
Yes, perfect. You know, we cannot be a sustainable community without a sustainable university without our community being healthy. Mm-hmm. And so our school will be even more than we've had before, being really razor sharp focused on what's going on in the community and have a community footprint, particularly in our 3 community engagement centers. And so under really, again, Provost Cudd's leadership, and I need to mention John Wallace here as well, the I Change initiative will change the culture when it comes to diversity and inclusion. So if we can't address issues of poverty and hunger and well-being, we can't be a sustainable community. And so it begins with that, to really see where our community is and how we need to change to look like our communities, to work with our communities, to address the topics that and the issues that are threatening our communities. And so within the university, I'm really heartened by the opportunity to work cross-disciplinary. I can say I've been so warmly welcomed within our Pittsburgh family, but there are a lot of things that we can do more. I saw a question that said, well, is there a moonshot? Yes, and that moonshot is really climate and health. We can do that. I know my peer here, the Dean of Science and Engineering, is there to work together across the campuses to do three things. Transdisciplinary collaboration, future-proofing, either physically or education and research, future-proofing our university. And thirdly, in the broadest sense of the term, working on strengthening community resilience. So those three things will bring us together.
Yeah, that's terrific. All right, well, we're off to a great start. Let me go to our second question, which actually feeds into one of the questions that we have in the chat. So here we go. Second question. How can frameworks like the UN Sustainable Development Goals help universities and schools like ours as we shape research, education, engagement, and operational agendas related to sustainability? So the related question to this in the chat for everyone is that, does Pitt need to reinvent the wheel, or is the UN Sustainability Goals a sufficient platform to embrace as our overall strategy? So I'm going to have Maureen start us off on this one, if that's okay. All right.
That's perfect. In fact, the city of Pittsburgh did a voluntary review against the Sustainable Development Goals. And so we can build on what the city has done. And so one of the critical things that come to mind is the fact that we need to collaborate in a different way. And so breaking down silos, and that is absolutely possible within our university to do that, building around, now there are 17 sustainable development goals. There's an opportunity to actually cluster some of those. The first chunk is about health, well-being, individuals. The second chunk is around climate and engagement. And the third chunk is really about collaboration, economic growth. And so if we look at those and take those as focus areas, we can both do research, education, and service around those, but also link with the conversation and the dialogue that we're currently having about our new goals university-wide. And so making sure we create that linkage that is natural and not something that we'll do on the side or extra. The same that we're currently doing in terms of a transformation of our university with diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's the same we can do with these sustainable development goals.
That's great. And I just want to add to that. I think that these are interlinked, right? I think that we can do all of this at the same time. And so let Carissa take it from there.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Amy. I hope you'll answer some of these questions too. I can't wait to hear. I'm already taking notes. So this is great. I'll just add in on this. I think what's especially powerful for me about the SDGs is that it gives organizations, agencies, communities, universities a common language and a common framework for collaboration, a common framework for measuring progress. And that's really, really important as we especially think about academic institutions as partners in these efforts. How can we be thinking about, per the question in the chat, how we operationalize the SDGs in our university context as we think not just about our sort of operational aspects, but our positioning in research, in the ways that we're training students, in the ways that we're thinking about engagement. And I think, we've seen language around sustainability evolve over time. And I think what we see right now in these SDGs is a very broad-based expression of the aspiration in sustainability, but also a practical sort of building block structure that allows us to identify targeted spaces for action, even if we aren't with any individual project or program or decision that we might make, addressing that broader issue. It breaks it down into compartments or blocks that I think allow for meaningful action that filter up to something that is bigger. So I'm excited to have conversations within this university about how do we frame what we're doing in this context? What are partner organizations that are using the SDG framework similarly? And how can we connect with them to be able to amplify the work that we're doing and partner on a longer term basis?
Yeah, I'll just offer my thoughts. So I'll answer a little bit of the question here, and then we'll go to number 3. And that is that I think a lot of these frameworks have a lot to be said for what they can do and how they can inspire you to think differently and to also gauge where you are. Because sometimes having that common ground to have a conversation is the most important starting place. So I agree with everything that's been said, and I think we are looking at a very great opportunity for all of us to engage in. So here's question 3. Here's question 3 for everyone. How can we use a transdisciplinary approach building on the science enterprise at Pitt to strengthen sustainability? So how can we do that? Who should go first this time? Should we give it back to Carissa? Let's give it to Carissa. Give her.
Sure.
You can start
Great.
this one.
Sure. I think, as I said in my earlier comments, sustainability approaches absolutely require that we bring everything that we have to the table, every bit of knowledge and theory and methods and expertise to the most complex challenges that are out there. And again, sustainability gives us a useful framework for being able to do that and sort of arrive at systemic understandings and hopefully get us to some systemic solutions as well. I think there is a lot that we can do as deans, and as well a lot of intentional work that universities like Pitt can do to create the conditions for transdisciplinarity to an even greater extent. I think there are opportunities to strategically use university-wide research and engagement centers as hubs for activity across disciplines and schools. My own experiences being affiliated with research centers have been so powerful and just such crucial spaces for building collaborations and the relationships that really are at the foundation of that. We can sort of assess expertise that we have and create lists of what we have, but the relationships and the personal interactions, even when they have to happen virtually, are just so instrumental. So doing that hard, somewhat slower work of actually building up relationships is absolutely essential. And I've seen research centers serve as really fantastic hubs for some of that work, and also for positioning expertise and doing the work of building up and sustaining partnerships. I think also we can build faculty and university capacity to actually engage in transdisciplinary research. There's a lot of science out there about how to actually do this work and do it better, do it more efficiently, and do it with greater impact. Approaches around team science. We can do work to build capacity for collaborative development of proposals and proposal teams, the kinds of facilitation, the things that fit in the spaces between the knowledge and the expertise and the people that are so, so important. Also just looking at the ways that we incentivize cross-disciplinary research, cross-disciplinary teaching and engagement through promotion and merit structures, through seed grant programs like Pitt Momentum Funds. I think there's a lot of really great work going on at the university and really great models that we can continue to be inspired by and apply in our own context.
All right. Maureen, what do you have to add?
There are so many ways you could do speed dating in real life. So I had a speed dating experience in my academic life. So within the first 3 weeks of me being here, Senior Vice Chancellor Shekhar asked whether I would join a team that would submit a U54, and it would be good if I would, be the contact PI. Well, what happens is I ended up being the lead PI, but here is what we did. And I'll hope to tell you that we've been successful. We broke down all the silos. And so we wrote a proposal that cuts across the research from bench, and in the old days we would say trench. So from bench, clinical, population science. We also wrote that proposal in that we would go through the life stages, prenatal, all the way to older adulthood. And we wrote that proposal that it would cut across every stage of professional career development, from postdoc to junior professor to full professor to leader in the administration. And so, and the other thing we said is that not only will we do this, we will not identify any, and this is to NIH, we will not identify any research topic. We will actually work with our community advisory board and our external advisory board to identify the health threats that are there. And that's what we'll focus the clusters on, 3 clusters of 4. And so I hope to live to tell you that this speed dating actually turned out in a very special marriage. So this is the way we see science happening across the university. Several of the schools participated, and that will become the norm rather than the exception. So.
Yeah, that's a great example. And I hope you are successful. All right. Okay, we'll go to our last preset question, and then we'll go into some of these great questions that we're getting in the chat. And I'll encourage everybody one more time to, if you have questions, to raise your hand, let Gina know, let me know, and we'll get them out on the floor. All right, so last question. As leaders of professional schools, how can we best learn from and collaborate with our professions to ensure substantive interchange of the most current practice and research expertise? Should I have Maureen kick us off?
Of course.
Okay.
And so we don't look like the old professional schools anymore. I don't think that anyone can become a leader in a school or in a university without having a transdisciplinary portfolio. And so it will require, in addition to my conversation about how we do science and research, it will require a very different way how we do education and how we do. So now that we're all, we probably will continue to live on Zoom regardless of what this pandemic is, it will require us to do more problem-based teaching, more case-based learning, and more joint teaching. And so, one of my highest education priority currently is to establish a Bachelor's of Science in Public Health. That Bachelor's of Science in Public Health will not be limited to our school. There will be specialty tracks into other schools. And Carissa and I talked about one such opportunity. And so we're looking forward to break down also the educational silos so that we can deliver products or graduates that could hit the ground running and not be siloed. So not know the protein on a specific enzyme, and that's all they know, or a specific law, issue. But the idea is that we deliver graduates that can function in a transdisciplinary way from the start, not that they have to go back and learn X, Y, or Z. And that includes things that we sometimes don't think about. That include things like budget, project management, and the most important one of those 3 that are across disciplines is communication. Whether it's science communication, crisis communication, there is no better example of how not to do risk communication as what happens until recently with the pandemic. We will use those examples forever and ever of how not to do it. So,
yeah. All right. Thank you, Carissa. What do you have to add?
Great. Yeah, I think following on the theme I shared before is we need to bring everything that we have to the table to be able to address these complex issues. And that's all the knowledge, regardless of where it exists, whether it exists in academia, or whether it exists in practice, in the broader community. We need to find ways to be able to pull all of that in. And I think that means we need to be in ongoing conversation with practice especially within these professional schools as we're designing research and thinking about research collaboration, but also, looking at ways that we're continuing to evolve and innovate in our curriculum to ensure that our students are prepared to do this work, and not just the work that happens now, but also to be able to lead and adapt and innovate in the, at the very quick pace that's really, really needed. So just looking for ongoing ways that we are connecting with practice is a really, really crucial piece of this. And then I think following on Maureen's example on the speed dating and the past proposal, we absolutely need to be informed by the questions that are coming from communities. And, to think about developing a proposal that is about asking what the focus of the proposal should be, it feels novel. And I think in many ways it shouldn't. And I think we can look for ongoing ways to be generating those questions, those needs, those issues, those opportunities for collaboration on an ongoing basis so that we're at the ready when we have opportunities to be able to generate external funds to be able to support that, when we have new partnerships or collaborations that can be pursued. That base needs to be there so that we're at the ready to take action when we have a chance.
Yeah. So I'm going to follow on this conversation because it seems like Rudy Navarro's question, GSPIA 06 grad, shout out there to GSPIA, with the city question, right? There's a city piece, of course, but there's a national trend where a lot of cities are great for planning, for sustainability, climate equity, but really fall short on the implementation. How can Pitt help to bridge that gap to implementation and leverage Pennsylvania state and as well as some federal assets? So Carissa, you want to jump in and offer an answer for one of your grads?
Sure. Yeah. I think we've connected on social media, Rudy, over time. So it's nice to be able to see you in real time on this session. So yeah, I mean, I think as an urban planner, I will say, there's a perpetual challenge with implementation. And you've all heard the line of, we created a plan, but it sat on the shelf. And I think there are a few pieces, and certainly as I've taught students about plan implementation and plan development, a key piece that I always emphasize is the significance of community engagement, in that you are simultaneously building a base of support, a base of advocacy, a base of individuals who will be helping you to do that implementation. Cities have a lot of powers and tools and some resources to be able to do this implementation. But when you're functioning at a municipal level, there are other entities that absolutely need to be involved to be able to get to implementation. And if we're thinking about bringing them to the table at the outset, being very deliberate in identifying the roles that they can play, the knowledge that they bring, the tools that they uniquely have in the private sector or in the nonprofit sector, for example, other agencies have at other levels of government, all of those pieces are really, really crucial to actually get to implementation.
All right. Maureen, did you want to add anything?
Yes, actually, I do. So there is an old saying that is, what gets measured gets done. And so what's often lacking in implementation are measurable benchmarks. And so there is a not necessarily new, but a different way to look at evaluation and monitoring, which is a lot of what we do in public health, and that's called enterprise evaluation. And when you have 17 sustainable development goals, that they don't necessarily link, there is process and outcome and impact evaluation, but they don't necessarily link to, it's very difficult to follow 17 goals if you would link them to goals. But rather, if you take the 17 sustainable development goals and link them to 2 or 3 culminating goals with 1 or 2 impacts, that's what enterprise evaluation will give you. And in fact, in the proposal that we submitted, we did exactly that. And so I offer that in addition to what Carissa indicated. It's really have measurable benchmarks and then look at evaluation and monitoring from a more enterprise perspective.
So I feel like this is a good moment for us to take the big question that Eric posed. And Eric's question specifically is, hi, Eric, good to see you. Here's what he says, right? Is there a sustainability moonshot that you think Pitt, if it works collaboratively across silos, could go after? Is there something that we should put on the horizon out there? Now, Eric, did you want to add anything to that question? No? Okay. So I'm going to leave it open there. Do we have a moonshot? Is there something we should be striving for? Anybody want to jump in?
You know, I will say yes. And just like we are going through transformation with the I Change initiative, we can lead the transformation. The city has started, and we can, what's important for us is to articulate what the content of that moonshot is. Not 57 things, but what are the things that we can put together to do? And I would say be a leader in transdisciplinary science.
Okay.
And specific part of that science with implementation science. That's the newer area of science where we actually will measure and translate that what comes from the bench, from the academic bench, into the real world. Secondly, really demonstrate how we can educate this upcoming generation differently than just discipline specific. So put together really curricula and portfolios that cut across all of our space. And then thirdly, demonstrate how we do sustainability and how we are engaged on the front line. So not in the academic setting only, but really, truly in the Hill District and Hazelwood and Homewood and in all of our communities. So let science work for communities, is what I really say.
Yeah. Carissa, anything to add?
Great. Yeah, I love that one. That's great. I was thinking more topically, and I think there are just so many ways to go on this. And, you know, one thing I've been paying attention to, and, you know, a thing that really drew me to Pitt is really thinking about what those areas of strength are within this university historically and emerging areas of strength. And I know with the incredible focus on health and the depth of reputation there, I think about intersections with our own school at GSPIA, and I've been thinking a lot about global health as it intersects with a broader sort of social conception of health and disparities and economic opportunity and those sorts of things, as well as the impacts of global health concerns on security and economic opportunity for individuals and issues like immigration. And as I look at strengths across this university, I think I see us in many ways uniquely positioned in that space where we have that incredible depth and reputation on health, broadly defined from public health and everything in between, as well as that incredible depth and reputation on global, and the ability to harness that reputation as well as the relationships that have allowed us to build up strengths in that area could position us, I think, pretty strongly in this space. And, you know, we have the broader external factors of a major global health challenge and concerns about security and inequities playing out in front of us. And I think we have, you know, an obligation to think about our own positioning and being able to solve this situation, and certainly even more so prevent situations like this from happening in the future.
Okay.
Amy, can I clarify something, terminology here?
Yes, I was going to ask you to do that. So great.
So I saw the transdisciplinary versus the multidisciplinary, but there's also a difference between global and international. Mm-hmm. So to give you an example, obesity is a global health problem. It is under our nose in our communities, and it's in the Caribbean where I'm from. And so climate and health, speaking about moonshot, is a global health problem. The poor communities, vulnerable communities are disproportionately impacted, but really contribute minimally to whether it's greenhouse gases or something else. So that's when you think about our university having that kind of opportunity is to traverse what is misunderstood, global versus international, and multidisciplinary versus transdisciplinary.
Yeah. So thank you for that, because I want to make sure that we got a chance to clarify on that question. So let's take one of the other questions from the chat, which is how can we better integrate the average person into the sustainability equation beyond the low-hanging fruit? So what can we do? What are the things, especially here at Pitt, that we might think about doing that would have some impact on that question? Who would like to jump in? Carissa, can I start with you?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, when I think of the average person, there are lots of average people out there that we might focus on. The first one that came to mind as an example would just be our Pitt community. We're a huge community of faculty, staff, and students. And how can we engage this broader community of folks on our campuses working here with us and contributing to this great set of activities that we're involved in? How can we make sustainability visible and part of the experience of living on campus, working here, being a part of this community? And I go back to Maureen's comment about what is measured, what was it? I forget now. What is value, or what is measured is valued.
Yes.
Yeah. And thinking about ways that we can portray our progress on sustainability to our broader Pitt community and give a sense that we're all contributing to something that is bigger. Ways of, understanding our individual impacts, whether it's, at the individual level, at the school level, at the department level, at unit level, ways that we can, be empowered to take action and understand the ways that it's contributing.
Maureen, anything else to add?
Yeah, I would say the first thing to do is not call it sustainability, because it's this fancy word that means different things to different people. And so, I'm hoping we're all adults here. And so I'll tell you, not a story, but something I said. When my daughter was getting married, I was asked for advice during the wedding. And, traditionally people give all sorts of advice and be good to each other. And so I said, make sure that sex is important in your life. Do it often and do it well, just like brushing your teeth. And so I had tremendous feedback, as you can imagine, from the other young people who are there. And so the analogy here is, everybody's asking, well, where is she going? The analogy here is make sustainability everyday's business, just like we're doing it, not something that you do extra, but just like brushing your teeth. Make it everyday's business, do whatever we do. And when we do that, then it becomes more than just low-hanging fruit, that it becomes something we commit to every day, at every level of our leadership, in every way we do science, in every way we do education, and in every way we do mission.
Well, and it's hard to follow up after that great anecdote there, Maureen, thank you. But I'm going to see what we can do here to keep going on this train. And I think the question that will be helpful for us to think about here, and it picks up on some of what we're saying, is that many people agree about the need for sustainability, but understand the term very differently, creating a false sense of agreement. Is this a hindrance or a help for identifying successful policies and garnering support for them?
Happy to take it, but Carissa, do you want to?
I was going to say, Amy, why don't you start with that one?
I do think this is a major issue, right? When we start talking about labels and we say sustainability is good and everybody says, yes, it's good. And then we realize that we're all talking about something very, very different that isn't at the core of what many of us might, especially included here, think about sustainability. And I think, as the lawyer among us, right, language is really important. And so one of the things that I think is critical as we think about, what do we mean by sustainability, gets back to that other discussion that we were just having. What are the things that we walk and talk and do every day? And then we will have something that's much more important than, the actual label that we put on things. And so that's what I think, and Aurora's heard this so many times, so I'm sorry, Aurora. She hears this all the time from me. Like it's how we talk and how we walk, what we do at the university, and that tells the story. And so maybe getting away from what is the word we're using and what are our actions, what are the things we're interested in, and then using those measures to really guide us and move forward.
So I'm part of the National Academy of Medicine's Climate Communication Initiative because of the very issue that climate and climate change is facing.
Yep.
And so we went away from global warming, from climate change to climate and health, because who would be against a child having clean air to breathe?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yeah.
And so the translation here is the strategy here is away from going that what makes people uncomfortable, but talk about that what we can agree upon. And so back into the term rather than using the term and sticking to the term. And so if we are for people not being in poverty, if we are for having safe parks to walk, if we're for bicycling, if we're for all those things, we actually are supporting sustainability without having to use the term.
Yep. Correct. Carissa, what else do you want to add to this?
Sure. I think if we do choose to use the term, I think one of the powerful pieces, again, in the SDGs, is the ability to break it down into chunks and to select one of those that is most applicable to your organization or the scale at which you're working. To pick any one of these. I mean, if we think about Pittsburgh and just honing in on sustainable cities and communities, and what are targets within that? What are relevant goals within that? What if we picked a few of these as a university in a given year and thought about, our operations and our facilities and our research and our teaching in these spaces? It allows us to connect into something bigger and enter into conversation with the other organizations that are doing this work. And as we said before, really crucial to taking that action at scale.
Yeah. So we have a question about the products and companies that are being looked at Pitt, and I'm going to leave that to Aurora. Aurora, I don't know if you want to jump in here because we are talking a lot about sort of what we're doing here at Pitt. And so I'm going to give you a moment. Just jump in, give us some perspective on what's being done.
Sure. I was going to answer that one in the chat. So I'm Aurora Sherrard. I'm the Director of Sustainability for the university. We have, Maureen's comments I take to heart because we have a Pitt sustainability plan that has 61 goals, right? And that seems like a lot, but there are these general trends and approaches there that are really important. We're advancing on all those small goals and all the big ones. And so, Austin and energy usage, specifically facilities, has been working for decades to get our energy and water use down with a variety of strategies. Most recently, they celebrated the lowest energy use intensity on campus since 2008, which is that big roll-up measure that's a testament to their progress. That progress helped us make that carbon neutral by 2037 goal, which is great. And I think all of the comments about what we're doing at Pitt and how we get everybody engaged is incredibly important, because what we're trying to do is create that culture of sustainability, right? For everybody from the undergraduate student all the way up through administration, to have people help where they can, contribute where they can, whether it's joining a committee or editing the climate action plan or using a reusable container, or doing research related to sustainability that impacts global health and international health. All of these things are really important. So,
yeah. So I just want to make sure that we had a chance for Aurora to introduce herself, to be honest, because we have such a good group of folks here. I want everybody to know Aurora and know the great work that's being done. So thank you, Aurora, for everything you're doing. All right, so now we have a corollary to the moonshot question. And that is, what regional competitive advantage can we move forward? Can we at Pitt move forward? And this is, again, from our GSPIA grad, Rudy, and he explains that his background is energy, so his mind is going there. Is there a Rust Belt, Appalachian, coal, natural gas, stranded asset, and community quandary that Pitt can help resolve to provide a health, economic, environmental transition? So let me turn it over. Who'd like to take this one first? Carissa, can you take this one first?
Sure.
Again, yeah. Rudy.
Yeah, I think Rudy, you got it. I mean, in the text that you shared in the chat, I think, we're an amazing global university, but we're also a place-based university at the same time. And that creates tremendous obligation and imperative to be engaged on these issues. And there's lots of conversation about right now on energy transition. And we're seeing it, certainly, we've seen it play out, and we're seeing the next phase of that play out as certainly as I'm getting to know Pittsburgh and Southwest Pennsylvania and Appalachia more generally. And how can we be a partner in facilitating that transition, in supporting communities as they work through that transition, in being an entity that is able to bring resources to the table at a significant scale to be able to make change? How can we be a convener of expertise, knowledge, resources, all that's needed to be able to engage on this? And I think there's significant opportunity for partnership across institutions. That was noted related to a different topic, the institutions in the Pittsburgh region. But in this broader region, we have a wealth of academic institutions. And what's the extent to which we're collaborating and uniquely understanding what we can bring to the table to be able to address these issues? So I think it's absolutely a moonshot, and it's really, really, really critical for us to be active in this space.
Maureen, anything else to add?
I would say one thing that is troubling for public health, or that we don't do very well or not good enough, and that's something I will change, is making the business case for the things that we clearly advocate for. So if FedEx this morning announced that they were going to go to electric for all their vehicles other than the big trucks, there must be a business case around that. Yes, I'm believing that they want to do something about climate and health in the air. So making the business case for sustainability is what we can do collectively. We have that expertise in our midst here. And so when I moved here and I got the city tour, I was told, well, this is the city with the highest number of bridges. And so we're surrounded by water. Water is a tremendous source of energy if we use it well. And so here's an example actually under our nose.
Yeah. Okay, now our provost has added a question to the chat, so I'll go ahead and take that one up. And it's, of course, very easy. It's going to be one of the easiest questions that we've had all day. Just kidding. All right. So how do we build coalitions across the political divides in order to make progress that includes and speaks to everyone in the region? I have to say, I do think this is one of the most difficult questions that we could try to take on in this particular moment, right? This is a very tough issue. So I don't know who wants to volunteer to go first. Should we have Carissa? Are you unmuted?
I appoint you, Amy.
Okay.
No.
Yes, it's the moderator's privilege.
Yeah.
So we'll let Carissa take a shot,
okay.
and I'll end it. How about that?
That sounds good. Great. Yeah. I mean, I think I highlighted the interpersonal, the personal relationships piece before as being central within the university. And I think it's central outside. I think it is about being present and beginning with conversations, showing interest, demonstrating true care and a commitment to a relationship. I think there's just incredible distrust across the political divide generally, and the extent to which that, plays out in communities in this broader region. I think, we're a microcosm for the broader challenges facing our country. And we have to do the good, hard, slow work of being there and getting to know and having conversations and establishing legitimacy in order to be able to, truly make that shift.
Maureen, do you want to add?
Yes, I think that our university is a unique convener.
Yeah. And
so we can use our role as a convener and a neutral science broker. That's what I always say about public health and at the entire university. So if we are a convener and a neutral science broker, whether it is through our board of trustees or other board of visitors, we can bring the political spectrum together on issues that matter to everyone. The hard work is to find out what issues matter to everyone. And not be preemptive in making those decisions. But for us to be that convener and for us to be the neutral science broker, that's a natural one for us. And I think the University of Pittsburgh is uniquely positioned to do that.
Yeah. I can only piggyback on what everybody has already said. I do think in this moment, it is incredibly difficult to have conversations across some magical aisle that I'm still not really understanding where that is and how wide it is, but I know that it exists. And I think part of that is going back to these fundamentals and sort of thinking about where can we find agreement. But part of it is in leadership and showing how folks can work across that magical aisle. And so I think we also have to demonstrate that as leaders, that we are going to work in lots of different ways where we can find things that we have common ground on and we can advance those things. I know this is tough because in this moment, what I see is that we're all on one side or the other side. And all we can continue to say is that we're actually not that far apart, everybody. We're really not. It's just that some social media and other medias that are profiting from this are dividing us in ways that are really destructive. And if we're going to solve it, I think part of this has to be in a message or some things that we're doing in the media to stop that from continuing. Because I do think that this is a very, very hard chasm that we're going to need to figure out how to cross it, but I don't know that any of us has the solution at this point. All right.
I'll just add in a part and a sort of detail on the we, and I put students in there as well. I mean, we think a lot about our roles as faculty or as administrators, and we have many students who are from communities, the kinds of communities that we talked about that are impacted. We have, these are students who have connections across the divide or are represented on that spectrum. And I think we need to be looking at ways to engage all of those students and create ways for them to be active on the types of issues that we're talking about, tackling the kind of problem that Rudy laid out, for example. I think they're such a fantastic way of approaching community and entering and building relationships and building trust along with those of us who are in established longer term positions.
Yeah, couldn't
and it gives them amazing experience on top.
Thank you, Carissa. I am a big proponent of surface learning.
Yeah.
And so the BSPH will have 120 hours of surface learning. But what we can do better, and I'll start that conversation in the health sciences, is to do that together. And so for our students to have internships together, because the community is not divided into medicine and public health and pharmacy and nursing, etc. And so if we could work across the university to have our students experience the community together, I think we'll begin to make those transdisciplinary changes.
Okay. So we're going to go on to a different kind of question. And this is one that maybe Eric's going to help us out on. And that is, someone says, I've learned a lot about circular economy in my sustainability classes. Is this a concept that is and can be applied to the Pitt community? And so, Eric, we have a pretty great project that we're talking about this. So I don't know if we should go ahead and let Eric get a shot at answering that one, and then we can turn it back to us. So, Eric.
The short answer is yes. Circular economy is basically when you design a product or a service, design waste out of the system before you start, rather than get to the end of its useful life and then go, oh no, now what do we do with it? Which most of the time is I throw it away, it blows out of my hand and finds its way into the environment, or all kinds of strange things. For really the last 150 years, everything that we've created has been, it's not really designed, but it's been created to have one lifetime. We use it anywhere from like 2 hours to 20 years, and we throw it away. And then it's out of sight, out of mind, which is not really true. We waste a lot of materials, energy, and whatever. And circular economy just says, don't design things that way. Design them so that they go in loops. Design them so that all the energy used is renewable. So either something is designed so that it's inherently recyclable, or it's designed to degrade benignly in the environment for real, not fake degradation. And for real, inherently recyclable, not recyclable on a label that was created by the marketing department. Always beware the marketing department. And so, you know, the big one right now that everybody's concerned with is plastics. Most of them, you've got hundreds of millions of tons produced. They have a lifetime of, you know, anywhere from a couple of weeks to months to a couple of years, and they're right into the environment of the landfill. So we're trying to figure out ways over the gamut of this is, how do you design a plastic that's inherently recyclable? What do you do with the ones you have now? Because every year it's another 350 million tons. But anything that we use could be redesigned. It's just that we've never thought about it before. We don't know how to teach circular design because we're not sure how to do it. So we're at the beginning of a new paradigm. So we're going to be figuring it out as we go, and then figuring out how to teach it. So for me, that's pretty exciting. You know, the more I know about a subject, the more boring it is. This one, I'm confused all the time. So I rather like it. So that's my intro. But the answer is sure. You know, focus of effort. We have all the talent we need. It's just focusing it on a problem that's just, it's miserably difficult. We really don't know how to do this well, but it's really important. Just the amount of stuff that we produce and goes just everywhere. Everything from, if you think about it, everything from your toothpaste, single use, and then God knows where it goes, to your iPhone. It's got a lifetime of what, 18 months, and then who knows where it goes, to your sandwich wrapper. I mean, everything. Anything can be redesigned if we know what we're doing. We're getting there. So I think it's a great problem, and we could be leaders if we jump first and jump hard.
And I knew to call on Eric for that because I have the privilege of being on the team with Eric and Melissa and all the others. So we're working on it. All right. Anybody else have a question? Gina, is there anything that I have missed so far in the chat?
We did have one question that wanted to ask a clarification of the difference between multidisciplinary and transdisciplinary.
Yeah, I think Maureen did some. Do you want to follow up again, Maureen, on that one?
Yes, so it's the same as international, somewhat analogous to international and global. So multidisciplinary is bringing many disciplines together. Transdisciplinary is really cutting across disciplines. So not keeping the different disciplines in silos. So not having an engineer and a public health and a law and a urban development, but really working towards one common area or one common problem from different directions. And so we favor transdisciplinary, which builds on multidisciplinary, just like international is multiple countries together, but global is really what brings us all, the pandemic really is a good example of a global problem and not necessarily an international problem. So,
All right.
I can add the one way that's been helpful for me to think about it and how I've experienced it as multidisciplinary as additive. You're adding or sort of stacking. What happens with transdisciplinarity is transformation, and that comes through integration. No individual member of a team could have done that thing without that transformation or true integration happening. And there's a lot of effort that gets you there. But when it happens, you've created a new thing, a different way of thinking. And it's really powerful.
It's absolutely correct. And in fact, it is this fundamental difference between the medical model and the public health model. In the medical model, the individual is your patient. In public health, the community is what we're focusing on. And so
That's great. That's great. I saw that Melissa raised her hand. So Melissa,
Thank
good
you.
to see you.
Good to see you too. I thought I'd ask a live question. I hope that's okay. One of the things, so Aurora mentioned that there are like these 61 different goals in the Pitt Sustainability Plan. And one of them that we've been really struggling with in the age of COVID is how we can think about using the university as a living lab. So within your respective roles and schools, is there something you would really like to see related to Pitt sustainability and the Living Lab?
All right. Who would like to go first on this one? Anybody want to jump in? Should I jump in first as the Living Lab? All right. So I'll jump in terms of what we are doing and what I'd like to see us doing. And so one of the things that we are fortunate to have here at the law school is an environmental law clinic. And so what we've been experimenting with is the right kind of fit for the things that we could do here that are impactful, that help individuals and the community, and figuring out, sort of what's the right balance for the things that we've been doing. And we've been getting some really interesting cases coming through the door that are helping folks who have some issues, for example, with mining and what's happening right locally. And these are the kinds of experiences that I think are really important and can serve as this sort of model for what it's like right out there in the real world, if you will, and how we manage those and how we come to a resolution in those cases, I think is really critical for serving as that living lab. I know everybody wants to think of a clinic and they want to think of going to the courtroom and people pounding on tables and, lots of, very hearty arguments being made. But many times what we can model is a different way to get to solutions and resolutions of problems. And so I think that's what's really fascinating. And I hope we can be a part of that conversation. So let me turn to Maureen.
Yeah, and I would say that our community engagement center and the investment that our university has made in it is that living learning space. And I'd rather not call it lab, but it is living learning for our communities. So because it's real, it's for our students, it's real, it's in the community, and it has a direct feedback. Within the classroom, maybe you have to wait till the end of the semester to get your test back on your exam. It has direct feedback, whether or not you're hitting it right or you're way out of left field. So that's I think, the impact of problem-based learning.
Yeah. Carissa,
I'll just echo the pushback a bit on the lab term. And just the sensitivity and sort of caution in using that, considering historical sort of distrust and extractive models of of research and impacts on marginalized communities. And I love the sort of focus on space. And as I get to know the community engagement centers in particular, I see that absolutely being modeled in every way, in the programming, in the structure of how the building is managed, in all of the pieces. And I think it's just so fantastic. And since my colleague from GSPIA, Maureen, is here from Connect, I just want to highlight that as a truly fantastic and I think transformative model in thinking about how universities engage with communities. And I think the most important piece of this is the sustained relationship and regional collaboration that is facilitated by the Connect program. Certainly, it creates opportunities for our students to get involved with communities. It provides really, really important relationships. And it's also creating value for those communities in that it is fostering that collaboration, identification of common interests. Lydia noted in the chat earlier the importance of working across those political barriers by, just identifying the things that people have as common interests and common challenges. So for me, it's a great model, and it's a way to pitch some really great work that's happening in my school.
Yeah. And I agree 100% on the lab term, and Aurora, we should look at renaming that in the goals that were set. I would just echo, one of the things that we talked about was like having a sustainability conscience almost across the university. And I think there's an opportunity to think about the data that we share and kind of the spaces that we create whenever we're doing that. And then also thinking about how that can have an impact on our sustainability IQ. All right.
I wanted to add, Amy, a few things. And one is that we think of ourselves and we live in the city, but we very much are surrounded by rural areas as well and rural communities. In one of my first conversations with Provost Cudd, and I will never forget that my commitment to her is that we will think more integrally and around interacting with our other universities that are part of our university, and making sure that we provide the education and science to our other campuses. And so working with our campuses out there, when we talk about sustainability, there might be a lot to learn, but also for our faculty, but particularly for our students on our other campuses beyond the Pittsburgh campus.
Yeah. All right. Well, let me take up this question about water sustainability. How can Pitt's communities work across disciplines to help the region address the intersectional challenges of water quality, infrastructure failures, and flooding? Those are different problems than we faced out in Utah, just for the record. We didn't have as much of the flooding problem as we had no water problem. So let's see what folks have to say about the water issues here. Carissa, you want to jump in?
Sure. I think, looking at models of regional collaboration, I think, a key challenge that we have with water sustainability is the multiple intersecting jurisdictions and responsibilities and differing resources and the challenges that creates. And certainly there are models, even in dry places like Las Vegas, where I worked for a while as a planner and was really involved in a regional water collaboration that brought together jurisdictions and sort of pointed to those issues that those jurisdictions had in common, in that case around drought and sort of water resource management. Those can certainly be applied. Also, as we look at places like the Twin Cities, where I was most recently, we have a very strong model of regional government. Took a long time to get there and very, very political, but it is arguably the most powerful regional government in the US. And it gives tremendous platform. It targets resources to those issues that absolutely need to be managed at that regional scale. And I think there's an environmental aspect of this as well, as we look at flooding, as we look at combined sewer and issues like that, and the extent to which state government can be a partner in managing some of these environmental impacts. and then another piece just to make it extra complicated and tie into sustainability and all of the issues within that is who's most impacted by this, who's facing issues with water access, what are the neighborhoods and communities that are being flooded, and how can we center the concerns of those communities at the same time that we're thinking about these bigger kinds of collaborations and governance that are needed.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead, Maureen.
So I come from a place where there was flooding every year, all year through with hurricanes. And so a couple of things, when we think about water and water quality, it's drinking water, it's surface water, and it's groundwater. And so water is not just one type of water. Secondly, it's a system. So I'm part Dutch, and it's always said the dikes are a system. They're not individual levees as we had in New Orleans. And thirdly, the culprits of water pollution it's both natural and it's man-made and technological. So when we think about water quality, we have to look at it through those three lenses.
Yeah. And the only thing I would add here are the profound impacts of climate change on all of the things that we're talking about in terms of water and where you're going to see increased flooding, et cetera. These issues are only compounded, and in fact, they are being magnified over and over again by the, climate change and what we're experiencing. All right, so let me go to, I think, probably our last question, because we're getting towards the end of our time together. In what ways can Pitt improve research support for transdisciplinary efforts on sustainability and support service learning courses that foster growth in sustainability education? Who'd like to take that one first? Do I have a volunteer?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll take the last piece first, and Aurora's put a message in the chat, and that's absolutely correct. It is after Hurricane Katrina when at Tulane we made surface learning mandatory as a requirement for graduation, is when the university was flooded with applications because students wanted to do that. And so making surface learning a required component of the 4-year degree, and that we will do that for the BSPH, is one way to actually a very low-hanging fruit to make that happen. In terms of transdisciplinary science, NIH is virtually only funding that. And what we're going to fund internally, intramurally, whether it's through cluster hires or through our CTSI or through our cancer center from the health part, that's what will drive it. And so I think that if we make it, again, more of the norm than something that's extra, something that's special, we will make progress. But it's a commitment that comes from every level of leadership.
Carissa.
On the research support piece, highlighted before, just the important role that centers can play as spaces for bringing people together, to have those early conversations that lead to collaborations. I think also, just the significance of small investments that bring teams together to have conversations, to be able to flesh out ideas that serve as the basis for broader proposals that go out to other organizations. Those can be really, really crucial in incentivizing this kind of work. Those are a couple of key pieces. And then also not just funding, but looking at ways that we're building that capacity, the kinds of facilitation that are needed to be able to bring teams together, to move them toward identifying not just the addition that happens as different disciplines sit at the table, but actually get to that transformation. And more we're understanding how to do that within universities. And I think it's something we can continue to invest in.
All right. Well, I think we have now exhausted everyone in terms of questions and answers here. I want to thank everyone for joining us. I want to thank in particular our two featured panelists, Carissa and Maureen. This has been an excellent conversation. I am so grateful to be a part of it and so grateful to be part of the team. I want to thank Provost Cudd for being here as well. Thank you for joining us. We have appreciated having your presence as well as your very hard questions. So thank you for that. We appreciate it. All right. So everybody, if you want to get involved, please let Aurora know or get in touch with Gina. We are here with lots of things to do and lots of work ahead of us. So please stay involved. Keep doing what you're doing. And again, I hope you have an excellent night. Thank you for being here. We'll see ya. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Amy.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you. I still owe you guys because it's after 5 o'clock, right? So,
Keep your rain check. So.
all right. We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Ellie.
Yeah, of course. This went so well.
I know, it was great. They're
Are
amazing.
you outside Benedum?
Yeah. I went on a walk in the afternoon and then I've just been like hanging around. But
That's awesome.
enjoying the nice weather.
Well, thank you. Thank you. We'll have to debrief.
Yeah, we should. I was going to say, Ellie, go into my office and get a Pitt sustainability notebook.